Hello and welcome back to week 3 of our Quill along. How are you doing? I hope you've been enjoying the process of creating our bee. Hopefully you've got your second wing done without too much of a problem. And you're up to this stage ready for us to press on. Now we've still got quite a lot to do, as you can see. We've got the top part of the abdomen, the head and the legs. And possibly some extra decoration in the wings. I will just go through that for you. But as I say, I'm looking at this now compared with the original. Let's just bring the original in. So that's the original design. And that's what we've got so far. I'm actually really liking the kind of the openness and the simplicity of these wings, rather than this being a lot more busy and fussy. I think they've both got things going for them, but we'll go through what I did for this, and because we've got some wheaties here, some loops and some extra lines, and then you can really just make your own decision. Okay, then we are going to be looking at the top half of the abdomen. Again, we're going to be using this just as a base for our design. Now this is really a section where you can absolutely do what you want to do. So if you want to go rogue, this is really a good time to do it, and just this section. You might like the bottom half of the bee that we did here, and you might want to keep that going in here, because you'd still cover these lines. I've just given you the central lines as a guide should you want to use them, but as long as you're quilling over the top of them, there's no need to worry too much about them if you don't want to do exactly that design. Okay, but I will show you something based on this step by step. Now I've used quite a bright yellow in here, and I'm not very keen on that, which is why I haven't sent you that colour, because that to me is more of a wasp yellow. Okay, so that's why I haven't included it. There's also this kind of beige colour, which is neither here nor there really, so we're going to concentrate just on the two shades of orange, the dark brown and the pale yellow for here. Okay, and then the head is nice and simple. We've just got straight on edge lines, and the antennae. There's two. Well, I'm running ahead, aren't I? Let's do it step by step rather than start to explode your brains. Okay, so let's start with the optional bits in the wings first, shall we? I think that's probably a good place to start. So here, this is the original bee, with the more complicated wing, and just in here I've got a couple of wheat ears, and then these are just really simple loops, just one loop at a time, that I've done in various different sizes along that top edge. And then here we've just got some extra on edge straight lines that I've just added in there. So it's nothing too complicated really, it's just whether you want to go for that look or not. As I said, I'm quite liking the simplicity and cleanliness of this, because that's kind of my style, that's how I like it. But we'll see, we'll have a go, because you can always place them in without gluing them down before you make a decision, can't you? And use the coils for something else if you're not going to use them in this. So I will put this to one side for now. Okay, now for wheat ears. The wheat ears we have got in here and here, and then we use wheat ears. I'll go through wheat ears for anyone who hasn't done them with me before. So we're using the Japanese tant paper. We've been using that all the way along, and it's gorgeous stuff. I just love this paper because it's good for the on edge as well as the traditional coils. What it isn't quite so good at is wheat ears, to be honest, unless you kind of train it beforehand. Okay, so you know the paper comes, it's in this kind of shape from where it's been packaged. What we're going to do is just use a nail or your scissors, and I'm going to curve it going against the curve it's already got. Okay, so I'm just running my nail along, kind of like you would curl paper ribbon, and then I'm going to turn it over and do exactly the same the other way, and just run my nail a few times all the way along the strip of paper, so you get quite a curly strip of paper. Okay, so why this helps, I'm not entirely sure. I don't know if it's kind of breaking down the fibers in the papers, I don't know, or maybe just starting to train it to do what we want it to do, but either way it helps. Okay, right, so then I've gone to the end of my strip of paper. So this is where we want the tightest loop, so again just running my nail along the end of the paper. Okay, then I'm going to make a smallish loop. Okay, we're just making a general wheat ear right now, just to have an experiment with and learn how to do it. Okay, so I'm pinching it at the base, and the edge of that loop is just resting against the length of the rest of the paper. Okay, then at the base where that end is, I'm going to put a fold. You see, I'm just going to put a fold so you get that kind of shape. Okay, and I'm going to just go round and round in the same direction. I'm going to make a second loop, and I'm just going to leave a gap between the two. Okay, you might want to leave a smaller gap, you might want to leave a bigger gap. As I say, we're just playing at this stage. And then at the base again, I'm going to make another fold. So I'm always just pinching it down here and looping it round. Okay, and another fold. And I'm going to just keep mine to 1, 2, 3, 4 folds. And then at the base, I'm going to trim this so it meets just at the end there. Pull that end away so I can just add some glue to it. So I'm not letting go and letting it unwind, I'm just holding it in place. Give that a moment to stick, and that gives us a wheat ear. Why they're called wheat ears, I don't know. Do wheat ears look like that? I'm not sure that I've ever seen an ear of wheat. But there we go. So that gives you a rounded one. If you did want to have them pointed, you just press a point into it as well to give you a different look. If you've seen my YouTube tutorial on making snowdrops, we use this technique for the leaves of the snowdrops. So there's various things you can do with that. Okay, so that's a wheat ear. So on the design, I'll bring that down here. Basically, you can make a selection of these in different sizes, and it's just a matter of sliding them into corners like so, which is really quite nicely effective. It's really nice when you've got that kind of pointed end where that your point can go. You just slide it in, and you can just make a number of them, but just bear in mind that whatever you do, you want 2 of them to kind of balance out and make it symmetrical either side. So you can just have a play where you want them to be, and then try and make one exactly the same size to go on the other side. Okay, so that's a wheat ear. Now for the loops, they are very simple. I'm just going to use another bit of this paper. It's literally just doing the first bit of that wheat ear. Now, there we go. Can you see that that's coming to more of a point rather than a nice curve. That's what we are avoiding. That's what, when we kind of train the paper to start with, that's why we do it, to stop that happening. So I will just run my nail along it again before making my loop. No, I'm going to get rid of that because it's already got that memory of the point. Let's start again. Nice curly bit of paper, please. That's better. Bring the loop around, then just add a little bit of glue to the end there. Pinch it for a moment or two for it to dry. And trim that off. And that's it. That's the loop. And again, you can just then make a selection of them and then with your tweezers just start to line them up. So I've just made a whole row of them and just slid one underneath the next one and just done it all the way around. And then you can see at this end I've just done that little bit of squishing. Always good for a bit of squishing just to get that round the corner. Okay, so that's loops and wheat ears. And then for the extra lines, bring this back again, sorry. The extra lines are just on edge. So again, it's just a matter, let's just try and straighten this back up. It's just a matter of putting it in one end, deciding where you want it to go, pinching it to the length, just like we did with the loops basically, but with straight lines, testing it out that you've cut the right amount, and then just adding that in there. Okay, so there's 3 things that you can play with: wheat ears, loops and straight lines if you want to make your wings fancier. Okay, so with this central point here, in the original design, well, I can show you, can't I, in the original design I started off with some wheat ears, and then I've got a coil in the middle there. I've changed that bit because it's actually really hard to get the wheat ears to be nice and to sit nice and evenly. You can see it's just kind of going off to one side there rather than being quite symmetrical. Not that I'm getting caught up with perfectionism, you understand. But it would be nice to just get it quite nice and even, especially with that being the center point. So what we're going to do instead is start with just a traditional teardrop. Then we're going to wrap the teardrop in a second colour, and then we're going to add some loops to it. Okay, so hopefully that will be a little bit easier, especially for those of you who are wanting to follow exactly what I'm doing with mine. Okay, so I will just move that to one side. I'm going to start with the golden orange. Take a strip of that, and we want half a strip to start with. Okay, so half a strip, and then just a simple teardrop. So into the quilling tool, wind it round all the way to the end of the strip. Slide it off and let go. And then a dab of glue on the end. Like so. Make sure that's glued down. Then if you remember, just check where your cut end is, and roughly there, we're going to give it a pinch. into a teardrop. Okay, so that's our center. Then I'm going to use the darker orange, the orangey brown, and I'm going to use a full strip this time. So with the central teardrop, I'm just going to get a dab of glue on one side of the point and then add the second paper onto that. And of course, if you want to use different colours, that's absolutely fine as well. It's quite a subtle difference between these two oranges, isn't it? Okay, and then what we're going to do, so I've glued it on like so. All we're going to do is wrap it around. Okay, so it's completely flush to the teardrop. When I get to the point, I'm just going to fold the paper over the point and keep wrapping. Okay, so each time I get to the point, just fold it over and we're just wrapping it up. This is quite a nice way to do butterfly wings, to get two colours as well. I do often do that in a free make and take. Nice way to add like a pop of colour. Okay, now I might not get all the way round. Oh yes, I can just. But any time you get to a point where you can't get the strip all the way around again, just trim it off so it's nice and level with the point and glue it there. Okay. Dab of glue. Press that down so it won't unravel. So we've got this kind of, oops, two-tone teardrop wrapped in the second colour. Okay, then we're going to add the third colour. I'm going to use the dark brown. Now, because I'm wanting to have loops that aren't flush, so basically a wheat ear really, I need to train the paper, remember? So, running my nail along the length, turn it over and do the opposite side. And just repeat that a couple of times so we get a nice curve. And then when you've done that, we're adding some glue to about half the side of the teardrop and adding colour number 3. And I'm just pressing it either side to make sure it's sitting nice and level with the other papers. Okay, and give that a moment so that dries. This is what we have now. Now, with the wheat ears, we only used glue right at the end, but because we want this to be quite nice and even, I'm going to use glue on both sides each time we wrap round. So we've glued it here. I'm going to add some glue halfway up this side as well. And then I'm going to pull it round like so. Give that a moment. So I've made a loop, can you see? But I've added glue this time. And then I'm going to go around again. So adding glue to the other side, about halfway up. And press that side. It just helps to keep the loops more even, basically. That's why we're adding the glue. Gives us a bit more control. Okay, now I'm just going to bring my template in just to check how we're doing for space and size. So if that was there, I'm just holding it in place, and that's going to work well. So if I do a really narrow loop next, I will basically have my grey covered, and then I can always go around again because I've given us some leeway. Okay, so I'll do a very narrow loop and then a third loop, and we should be good to go. So glue halfway up again. I want a really nice close loop, like so. Hold that for a moment, and then I'm just going to do one more loop, another quite narrow one, and then I will trim it off. Okay, so glue on the side, hold it in place. Just need to be a little bit patient with these, and then glue on this side again, and bring that round, just another nice narrow loop, and again just pressing it either side, making sure it's all nice and level. I think that will give us quite a nice effect. There we go, and then I'm just going to trim at the end here, get rid of the rest of that paper, smooth it down. There we go. So we've got a mixture of traditional coil plus a little bit of a wheat ear added on the top. And then if that goes on there, if it's a little bit too narrow, when we glue it down, we can always just give it a little bit of a push to open it up a little bit. But of course, where we've glued it, it's not going to open. So, and what you can always do, it doesn't, if you can see where the lines are, it's not flush with this curve at the bottom. So you can put your shape floating where the grey lines are. If you need to, you can always bring it down as well, okay? So I need to put mine a little bit further up just to cover my grey lines, and mine will sit about there. I'll just pull that down, push that down a little bit when I glue it. Okay, so when you're happy with that bit, I'm gonna add some glue. So just clean the nozzle, it's getting a bit dirty. I would go for little dots of glue again. So a little bit in the middle, a little bit around the edge. So I'm being fairly generous, but just still little dots. So hopefully it doesn't go splodging out anywhere. So can you see if it will focus? There we go. So I've just tried to get little dots of glue on most kind of loops. And then I'm just going to place it down nice and carefully. And just say, press that down. I'm just going to adjust it a little bit as it sticks. And just hold that for a moment. And remember, you've got your tweezers or your acrylic brushes just to wipe away any blobs of glue. I've just got one tiny one there, and that's fine. Here we go. I think that's fine. Lovely. For the next bit, the next printed bit that you've got on your template are these two little teardrops here. And as they are on the original, I'm going to do these in the pale yellow. Okay. So they are going to be quarter strips. So I've got my pale yellow. And cut this in half and in half again. And I want two of those. So into the quilling tool. All the way to the end. Glue the ends down. Like so, and remember where your cut end is, and just give that a pinch. Like so. So I've got my 2 teardrops, and then bring in the template, and they are going to go just there. Now, depending on the size of things you've got so far, don't worry if you need to move things around a bit. So on here you can see I've got the 2 teardrops with a tight coil, a tiny tight coil using 1/8 of a strip in the middle there. That can easily come out if you need it to. As I say, you just want to be able to cover those grey lines. So depending on where this sits, you can move that up and down. Okay, so it can be right down here if you need it to, bumping up against your wheat ear if you need it to. Okay, so just play around with that. I don't think I'm going to have space for anything in between there, but that's fine. We'll just adjust. Okay, but I'm happy with those. So I'm going to pop them down. It's just nice to get rid of those grey lines, and then we're completely free with the rest of the design and what we do with it. Okay. So I'm going to have a small gap, but I don't think it'll be big enough for a tight coil. However small I do the tight coil. But there will be other things that we can do instead. There we go. Right. Okay, so far we've got these fixed points in here, and now we're going to look at the sides. And we're going to put some big loops in there. So if I bring in the original, now remember this is slightly larger scale, so we need to just simplify it slightly. And we're still going to have these loops, but we're just going to aim for 2 loops and then a teardrop in the center. Okay, but it'll still give us the same kind of effect, these loops bending around the center. Okay, so you may find a ruler handy for this section if you've got one. And what we're going to start, I'm going to start with the pale yellow, and I'm going to do the larger loop first of all. So I just want 1/4 of a strip, so no ruler needed just yet. Let me move this out of the way again. Okay, so just 1/4 of a strip, and then I'm just going to train the paper, just run my nail along it one way and then the other, and I'm simply going to glue it like we did for the small loops in the wings. It's exactly the same. I'm just going to glue it end to end like so. Okay, so just a little dab of glue. Try not to get it beyond like 1/2 centimetre maximum. So just want to glue the ends together. I don't want to hold the paper together any further up. I want it to open up like that. And I'm going to do exactly the same again. So I've got one for the other side. So training the paper, curling it one way, curling it the other, and then a little dab of glue on the end and pinch it together. Just give that a moment to dry. So then hopefully these should be exactly the same size. And then on the template we'll have one for each side, like that. Okay, now we're going to just shape them a little bit, again just teasing them with your nail just to help them fit in there a little bit better. It's amazing what you can get paper to do just by encouraging it. Okay, we're not going to glue anything down yet. We're going to do what we're going to put in the middle as well, and then we're going to play with placements. Okay, but they're done, so I'll leave them there for now. Move that out of the way. So then on the inside I'm going to use the golden orange. I've got, oh no, that's the darker orange. Let's get a new strip. So the golden orange, and this is the bit where you need a ruler, and I'm going to measure out 6 centimeters. And you want 2 of those, one for each side as well. Okay. And for these we're just doing exactly the same thing. We're just making a slightly smaller version to fit inside the larger ones. And working out the length was just trial and error, starting with something slightly smaller than the one we just used, and just making it a bit smaller till it fitted. That's no magic to it. That's the only way I could do it. Trial and error. And again, we're making 2 exactly the same size. There we go, just check nothing major's gone wrong with those. And then bring this back in, and hopefully, again, I'm just going to tease it a little bit, just gently stroking it, just to have a bit of a curve, and then that will go inside that one if you don't flick them around. And again, just giving it a gentle stroke. Oh, I need my tweezers. They're not going where I want them to go. There we go. Okay, and again, not gluing anything down yet. We'll play with placements. Okay, so now we just need something else in the middle, and we're going. Then I'm going to use the orangey brown. And we're going to do some traditional coils right in the centre rather than another tiny loop. And I'm going to do quarter strips for these. So just a regular teardrop. So into the quilling tool. All the way to the end. Let that open while I roll the next one. Like so. And glue those down in a blob. So these will be, These are going to be small in the center, but it will maybe give us space to do something else in there as well. Okay, so I want them to be pretty similar, so just check the size against the first one before gluing that down. So I'm going to start with a teardrop first, pinched as normal, and then just pushing it around my finger just to give it a bit more of a curve to match the shape of the loop. Okay, almost like a speech mark, isn't it? So pinch this one and then just push it around my finger to give it a curve. Okay, so now we can start to play with placements. So tweezers at the ready. We've got our bigger loops. Okay, and now we can really play with where things are going to sit before we glue anything down. Now remember, with these you can always just use your nail, just run it nice and gently, but just shape your loops as much as you want to or need to give them nice curves and make them quite similar. And then we can play with where we're going to put them. So for instance, we could put them down at the bottom so they meet here, and then just rest them against the side. So that's one option. Or we could move them up here so they kind of rest against our teardrops, another fixed point. And that's quite nice because that way we have this space to play with and do something different here and here. Or you could maybe just keep them right in the middle, like that, in which case you've got some negative space here, but not so much space to do anything with, but you might like that effect. Okay, I'm quite liking this one, so I'm going to play with that because then I can do things in here. But I'm not making a decision yet, so I'm not gluing anything down because we've got the other elements. So I've got my other loops, place them in there, and again for these you can have them in the center so they're equidistant from everything, or you can push them down so one end sits in the other end, and again that gives you some gaps that you can do something with if you wanted to. And then we've got our teardrops, our little curvy teardrops, and again the same, same goes with those. So they could, everything moves, doesn't it, until you glue it down, which makes it a little bit trickier, but persevere because this is important. So that could go down there. Just want to make sure we don't get too much of a face looking out, although we can always deal with that as well. There we go. So I want that touching up that end. I'm quite liking that because then I'm going to do stuff down here in these gaps and things in here, probably some maybe tight coils. Okay, so we'll go with that, I think, and glue that down. So I'm going to glue from the outside in, so I'll just move those out the way. So just as we normally do, just with without getting too many blobs, I'm going to put little dots of glue, as small as I can make them, all the way around the edge. And then very carefully, I want it to bump up against those up there. Like that. There we go. And quickly wipe away any blobs that you've got. Like so. And then do the same on the other side. So I'm putting this, because I've got this fixed point, I can rest against up here and then bring that in to the side over there. It's a little bit blobbier. Quickly get rid of any of that glue where I don't want it. There we go, just that's happy with that so far. And then we've got the next loops, which I couldn't see, but they're right up here. And again, you still can change your mind. Put them down there. It's a bit easier now the outer ones are fixed, just to have a more of a play. Yeah, I'm going to tuck them down there like that, I think. And then do same again. Tuck that end in. So get rid of the blobs. And then we've just got our little apostrophes. And again, just have a final play before you make your final decision as to where they're going to sit on. I'm going to pop them quite centrally. It looks a little bit like a face at the moment, but trust me, it won't when we've finished. The second one's always a little bit harder because you're trying to mirror the first, especially when you've got no fixed point to work with. I think that will do. Okay, so then we can figure out the rest of it. Now at the bottom, I'm thinking to, rather than just have this on its own like a nose, it's looking at me, it's suggesting puffin to me at the moment. But let's get rid of the nose and mirror this. So we can do another teardrop either side of that. And I'm thinking if we curve them, we'll be able to fit a half strip teardrop in there. So if I move that out of the way, I'm going to go back to the golden orange. take a strip of that, cut that in half. So just a regular teardrop, and then we'll just curve it like we did with the little ones in the centre of our loops. So 2 of these. And again, I want them to be the same size as much as possible. So glue one down first and then hold it alongside. Get them this, whoops, and don't drop it because that makes it a lot harder. Go, glue it without dropping. Okay, and then like we did before, just pinching into a teardrop and then shaping it just around your finger like so. Teardrop and then shape. Let's see how they look on there now. Yeah, and look, they just meet right at the bottom, and I get rid of that nose. It's not a nose anymore. Okay, I'm happy with that. I'm going to glue these straight down. Rather than work out the rest of it, I like this bit. So we'll glue that down and work the rest around it. Lovely. Okay, let's move on to the head and get the head and the antennae on there. And this is quite straightforward. It's simply very short lengths of on edge. And if I bring in the original, there you can see. So we'll mirror this one and we'll start with the golden orange, and then we'll go into the darker orange, the orangey brown, and then the very dark brown for the top of the head and the antennae. Okay. Whereas here we did the outline so the wings could then bump up against it, we're going to do the opposite for these. We're going to do the lines first and then put the eyes in. So we just need to be mindful of getting the length right for the strips here. Okay, but you've got the lines on the template to guide you. So let's start with the golden orange. We're not going to use any of the yellow here, so just the darker colour. So again, as ever, I'm just using my nail to start giving the paper that curve to match what we're going to follow on here, and that's going to be bumping right up against the abdomen. So as ever, I'm going to use my tweezers just to pinch where I want to cut it. And it's up to you whether you want to cut all your lengths and then glue them down, or cut and then glue one at a time. Yeah, that's fine. Whoops, bit of a blob there. Push that round. Give that a moment to dry. And and then do another one. How many lines you want to do is pretty much up to you. Depends what kind of spacing you want. You can always space them out and then think, you know what, I'm going to put another one in there. Where are my tweezers? I'm putting my tweezers down to pick up the scissors. Okay, pinch there, cut that. So there's no, you don't have to only do the number that are on the template by any means. You can put as many lines in as you want to, or as few. One of my big influences in the quilling world is Yulia Brodskaya. She's just an incredible artist. And she's got a wonderful book called Painting with Paper. And it's not a step-by-step project book or anything, but it's there's writing. It talks through her process and her learning curve and everything. And she talks about using these single strips of paper together. And the fact that a lot of quilling is about the light bouncing against each other and shadow, light and shadow. So if you put two strips of the same colour together, you get that lovely, they reflect against each other, making that colour really pop. That's one thing that really stuck with me from her book and influences my own designs now. Okay, so up here the lines are more spaced out, but you can fill them in as well. If we just have another quick look at the original, you can see how many I've got on there. Okay, so I've done 3 of the golden orange. I might just do, it's always nice to have odd numbers, isn't it? So I might do another couple. No, I'm going to go on to the darker orange now. And put one underneath that. Underneath the drawn line, I mean. So it's going to go in there. And I'm just being careful that I'm not going to encroach on the eyes. So I'll just trim it just a touch. There we go, and just give it a bit more of a curve. Not very easy to curve such short paper, is it? There we go, that's better. My hands are shaking. And then I'll go for one on the line next, but I might add in an extra one. If they look too far apart. So it's going to go there. So that one's right on the line. Wipe away my blobs. So that's 2. Yeah, what I'm going to do, haven't made it easy for myself, but I'm just going to add an extra one in there in the middle of those two. So then I'll have 3 of the golden orange, 3 of the browny orange, and then I'll start to use the very dark brown. Yeah, just give that a slight trim so it's not in the way of my eyes when I put them on, like so. Whoops, I'm dropping it. Slide that in there. Lovely, and then I'll go on to the very dark brown. Just need a bit more of a curve. Oh, I feel all fingers and thumbs today. About there. Trim that down a bit more. That's better. Just get rid of that blob. And I should just be able to get 3 of these in as well. They don't all have to be perfectly parallel with each other either. So this one is slightly curvier than the one before. But I quite like that effect. Almost looks joined up there. And then go for the one on the line itself. Oh, I've got that pretty spot on. Just make it a little bit curvier. Yeah, smashing. Try and get it in the right place with my shaky hands. I don't know why they're shaking. I had a good breakfast. Here we go. Okay, now for the antennae, there are 2 options. You can either do a length of on edge and then add a coil. That's probably the easiest way. Or you can do an open coil, which we haven't covered. We haven't done any open coils in this design. But let's just keep it really nice and simple. And if I just add a bit more of a curve. So I'm going to cut a length to just do a straight edge. There we go, that'll be just about right. And then we'll just do a very small quarter length strip type coil. Again, get right over the top of it so you've got that bird's eye view, so you can check that you're on the line. You could do a tight coil if you prefer as well for this, depending on what kind of look you like. I'm going to go I'm thinking, is it a quarter or is it an eighth? So you either want a quarter strip for a tight coil, or if you want to do an open coil, you'll want an eighth of a strip. Okay, so if I move that out of the way, this is half a strip, so I can use this up. So that's quarter. I'm going to go for an open coil. So I want an eighth of a strip. So just some dainty little open coils. And of course I want one for each antennae, so I'll do the other one. And these are just staying as circles, so nothing else to do to them. Just make sure that's glued down nice and flat. And then check, these are so tiny. Check they're the same. It's probably actually easier to do quarter tight coils than anything using an eighth of a strip. There we go, that will just go on there nicely, and just be aware where your cut end is, and then that cut end will go against the line just to hide that. Okay, I'll glue that down. Now because time is ticking on, I will, oh, we haven't done the eyes. Let's just do the eyes. So for the eyes we want a quarter of a strip. So of course we want two, and we want them to be basically the same size. So I've rolled two, glue one of them. And then measure the second against it, hold it side by side, unless of course you're using the circle sizer. And then they're slightly oval shaped, the eyes. So literally just give it, I kind of bounce it between my fingers just to ease it into more of an oval shape. The cut end I've got on the side, so then I can bump that up against the head. So just bouncing it into an oval shape, like so. Okay, then bring it back down here, and they can glue, here's my cut edge, into place just there. Oh, that looks better, doesn't it? Even though he's only got one antennae at the moment. There we go. Okay, so time is ticking on, so I'll leave you to finish off that other antennae, and we'll move on to some legs. Okay, so last but by no means least, we need to look at the legs. Now we've got 6 legs, they've got a lot of coils between them, so we're not going to have time to be able to do them all together. So you've got quite a lot of homework from this lesson, haven't you? So we are going to start and just do this top leg up here, okay? But there's nothing new here, okay? We've got a mixture of tight coils and closed loose coils. It's nothing that we haven't covered elsewhere in the bee. There's maybe just this one, which is a slightly different shape. But other than that, we've got teardrops, we've got marquees. So as I say, you're good to go, okay? You've also got your diagram, which gives you the length of the strip for each one and the type of coil. And then they are mapped out on here for you for where you place them. But as I say, we'll do one together, and then you'll be able to finish it off in your own good time. Okay, so I'm going to put this out of the way, and we'll start, as I say, closest to the body. Now, you need a ruler for this because it's slightly odd dimensions. So for the 3 tight coils that we're going to be doing, they're going to be 7 centimeters long. Okay, so if I just measure one, check that's okay, and then I'll just use this one to measure the others. If you're a millimeter out here, it really doesn't matter, so don't worry too much about being completely accurate. There we go. So I've got 3 for my tight coils. So I will just make those. Okay, so that's 3 tight coils. Then next up we've got a teardrop, which is half a strip. So just a closed loose coil, and it's going to be shaped into a teardrop. circle sizer, that's a number 12. Yeah, definitely number 12. So I'm going to point this into a teardrop, but I don't want it to be too pointy. So I'm just going to move my fingers a little bit further up where I'm putting the pressure. Okay, rather than get a really sharp point at the tip. Okay, so that's that one. And then the next one is using 2/3 of a strip. Okay, so that is 26 centimeters. So I will cut that to size. So same starting point. This is going to be the kind of soft half circle type shape, but same starting point. So it's closed loose coil. So I'm on the quilling tool all the way to the end. Let it open. Now this, I'm just going to check the length because I want it to be about 15 millimeters just to fit nicely. So that's number 15 circle if you're using a circle sizer. But you can always just hold it onto a ruler. We just don't want it to be, we want it to be the right size basically. That's why I was just checking that this time. Okay, and then what we want to do, so I'm aware of where my cut end is. I want that to be kind of at the end, one end or another. And then I'm going to put my fingers and thumbs together like so. Now the thumbs will provide the flat edge, and then the fingers, if we just kind of bring them down and separate them towards the points. Okay, and if I kept going, so these ends would come into a point, you'd get a half circle doing this. Okay, so I'm just kind of stroking down that edge to get this kind of odd, almost half circle shape. Okay, now if we bring in the template just to check how that one's going, it will just about cover that nicely. Now a tip for these, let me come into the middle of the screen a bit more. A good tip for these is if you need to make them a little bit fatter, just press them that way. If you need to make them a little bit longer and thinner, just give it a press in the middle. Another thing that's worth doing is just flipping it over and seeing if it fits better that way, which mine does actually. Okay, so that fits nicely there. So hopefully, move that out of the way a second, if we've got our tight coils first, then our teardrop, and then this odd shape. I think I wanted it the other way, didn't I? That way. That's it. Oops, they're moving. And there we go. We're getting a leg forming. Okay, so we can start to glue these down, and then I just want to have a word about these tight coils at the end. So get my tweezers. Now with your tight coils, remember that you have got these cut edges as well. So I quite like to have them, the cut edge, at the bit that's kind of joining the other one, if that makes sense. So glue that into place, just give it a moment. So I've got my cut edge there. I'm going to bump that up against the one that's already there. And this one, just turn the cut edge so that's against that one. And again, remember, get right overhead so you get that bird's eye view, so you know you're not missing the mark. So there on there, and then the teardrop. I'm going to give that a little bit of a squeeze as I put it down, just so it fits nicely where those lines are. Press that onto there. Give that a moment to stick, like so. And then this one is, again, is a little bit fat. So if I, again, just give it a squeeze as I put it on there. And remember, wipe away any blobs of glue you get as well. I'm just looking at where it's falling as before it glues down. There we go, that's it. Okay. Now then, these little coils at the end are not entirely accurate, okay? So in a video first, here are some I made earlier. Now these are 1/8 of a strip that I've made, because it would be really, really fiddly to do anything smaller than that. But if I glue these on, they're ever so slightly bigger than what's on the template. However, it all works out in the end. So do them as 1/8, and then when we glue them on, we're just going to be careful to make sure we glue one right bumping up next to the next. It's really good English there, wasn't it? And there may be a grey line showing, but I promise you won't be able to see anything, okay? So you will just want one fewer than the number that are on there, okay? So I'm really sorry about that, but it's not a problem. So these are 1/8 of a strip. We're just going to be nice and careful when we place them on, that we're not leaving any gaps. We're still following that line. Give that a moment to glue down properly. And this will be the case for all the tiny circles. Okay. So it's just a row of these. And then that last one, can you see it just covers that last one nicely. Like so. And then this very last coil, we're back to 1/4 of a strip, okay? And that will go on there. And I've just always wanted to say that. Here's one I prepared earlier. So there are lots of tight coils that I prepared earlier. There you go. And if we zoom in, angle it for you, you can see, you might be able to see a tiny wee mark if you really look for it, but other than that, everything's covered just the same. Okay, so that's the legs. See how you get on with the rest of those. So guys, that's it. That's the end of the videos. Now I know you've got some more quilling to do to finish off your designs, but relax, enjoy it, and it will all come together beautifully, I'm sure. Do keep in touch. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to see your finished bees when they are done, and any other quilling that you'd like to share with me. I always love to hear from you guys. You've got my email address. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, so however you'd like to keep in touch, that would be amazing. But other than that, that's all from me for now, and I really hope to see you again soon. Bye for now.